So this is symbolization 330. So we look at, it says something is round and something is square, but it is not the case that something is a round square. So we see that we have three determiner phrases here. We have this something, and this something. There are also some sentential connectives. So we have this and this but, and this it is not the case that. So there are 6 different logical symbols, and we have to decide which of them has the highest scope, which of them has scope over all the others, and which should we symbolize first. So the and looks like it could do it. Right, we have, there's one sentence, something is round, and here's another sentence, something is square, but it is not the case that something is a round square. This but can also do it. It would leave us with something is round and something is square, and it is not the case that something is a round square. This something, for example, doesn't, because if it were the main connective, then we would have the whole sentence would just be this determiner phrase and then a verb phrase. But there's all sorts of other stuff in the sentence. There's everything here, and there's everything there, and that tells us that that something is not the main connective. So, and in fact, it's the but, because the but, if the but is the main connective, then the sentence breaks right here, and that is indeed where the comma is. So this but is the main connective. Oh, that's not what we wanted to happen. And so we have these two conjuncts. Something is round and something is square, and it is not the case that something is a round square. So here again, this conjunction is the main connective because that's a sentence and that's a sentence. Whereas this, could this be the determiner phrase and then the rest be the noun, the verb phrase? No, because is round and something is square is not a verb phrase. It's got that something in there. So the and is the main connective, and we have something is round, and we have something is square. And over here we have, well actually let's do these. So something is round, so that's an existential quantifier. We could select rest exist. Oh, let's make sure that doesn't interfere. So let me do that again. We could select rest exist, or we could just select exist gen. The exist gen just gives us the existential quantifier for existential generalization. The res exist gives us the existential quantifier and then the conjunction. Now normally when you insert an existential quantifier, that's what you want to use, because almost always you have a determiner phrase that has a noun phrase in it, and so you'd have x is NP and then x is VP. And in this case, the verb phrase is round, so is round, and here the noun phrase would be x is a thing. But the thing is, this is a dummy conjunction. We don't bother to symbolize x as a thing because all of the quantifier ranges over all things. All its values are things, so this is superfluous. So we don't do this, and instead we just do this. We say x is square, and that's atomic gx. So over here, we're just going to have, instead of this conjunction, we'll have x is round, and that's atomic fx. So now we go over here and we say it is not the case that something is a round square. So, okay, oh, there should be an it there at the beginning, I suppose. So that's a negation, and we have, it's a negation of something is a round square. Something is a round square, that's an existential, and its x is a round square. So x is a round square is a conjunction of x is round and x is square. So what we need to understand going in here is, so there are two things that are going. We need to understand the way in which the scope of sentential and quantificational or sentential operators and determiner phrases. And in this case, the but has the scope, and then we get the difference between some x fx and some x gx on the one hand, and some x fx and gx on the other hand. And in this case, some x fx and some x gx, those are both true, but sum x, fx, and gx is false, and not sum x, fx, and gx is true. So here we're saying there's a thing that has the property f, and here we're saying there's a thing that has the property g. But this does not say it's the same thing that has the property f and g, because we don't have an existential quantifier attached to f and g. There's no, for this to be true, there's no requirement that the value, that the thing that makes this true and the thing that makes that true be the same. But here, if this is going to be true, not the negation, but just the existential quantification, there needs to be one thing that makes that whole thing true, and so there needs to be one thing that makes both that and that true. So this requires that it's the same thing that's both f and g. This does not require that it's the same thing that's both f and g. And the English has, and that's because of the way in which we've combined the conjunctions and the existential quantifier. In this case, the conjunction has scope over two different existential quantifiers, and so there can be one thing that makes this existential quantification true and a different thing that makes this existential quantification true. But here, the existential quantifier has scope over the conjunction, and so there's one thing that has to make the whole conjunction true. So that's why these two sentences, these two parts of this whole sentence get symbolized in the ways that they do. So that's 330.